Ah, ya llegó. Aquí está. Perfecto. Bueno, pues aquí les presento a Norville. Hola, Norville, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm pretty good. And you?
I'm doing good. I'm so sorry that I'm driving home now.
Oh, are you driving and talking? Just like the witness of Johnny Depp?
Yes, and now you're about to ask me questions about my law enforcement career. That's beautiful.
Thank you. No, thank you very much for taking your time. Alex, he's gonna help us to translate the questions and the answers. So,
hey, how's it going?
Okay, bueno, first of all, how long you been serving as a police officer in New York? For how long?
Yeah, so I was a police officer in New York for 20 years.
For 20
Él ha sido policía en Nueva York por 20 años.
And what inspired you when you were little to take this career, to have this as a career?
So actually, funny story, I didn't plan on it to be my career. You know, my mom, when I was in the military, my mom told me that I couldn't come back home unless I had a job. And so being a true West Indian mother that she was, she pretty much made me take it. So she's the one who signed me up for the exam and everything. And then all I did was sit down and took the test. So it wasn't really ever in my plans. It's just kind of having a West Indian mom, and that's the way it goes. You can't come back home unless you have a job.
Dice que mi mamá le preguntó cómo se inspiró a ser policía. Dice que pues su mamá no le dio ninguna alternativa. Dijo que después de que estuvo en la militar, creo, su mamá le dijo que si regresa solamente si tienes trabajo. Entonces la mamá es la que la inscribió a la academia de policías y él nomás fue a tomar el examen. Entonces por eso.
Oh, in your career, Norville, how long you been in domestic violence incidents? Like, how many times you been called to 911 for domestic violence incidents?
Oh, 100 times. Back in my career, so many times. It's too many to count.
Mi mamá le preguntó cuántos, en su carrera, cuántos casos de violencia doméstica ha acudido. Dice que pues bastantes, cientos.
As a matter of fact, domestic violence. So when I just graduated from the State Police Academy, one of the guys that I graduated the academy with, for brand new, was actually shot and killed at a domestic violence incident. So, yeah.
Nos cuenta que cuando se graduó, uno de sus compañeros, falleció en una llamada de abuso doméstico que le dispararon.
Oh, and in these events, did you have more experience that domestic violence happens in women or in men? What is more frequently?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of times it was like more action where men against women, but I was obviously, but a lot of times, you know, there were times as well where women were violent towards the men, but usually the men were more physically violent towards women, unfortunately.
Pues dice que usualmente su experiencia, los hombres usualmente son los que son los agresores en llamadas de violencia doméstica, la mayoría.
Okay, and in order for you to, as a police officer, where are the rights of when you see the scene to step into the scene or into the house? What are the rights that as a police officer you have?
What are the rights that you have when a police?
I think she means obligation.
What are you allowed to do?
What are you allowed to do in a domestic violence case?
Yes, when you arrive at the house or in the incident place.
Right. So when you as a police officer, when you're responding to a domestic violence case, so that's always one of the most deadliest situations for any police officer is to respond to a domestic violence case. If you look at the statistics, the crime statistics, it'll tell you that most police officers suffer violence against the police officer in a domestic incident. So pretty much every police officer knows that when you're going to these kind of cases, it's when you're at your most heightened It's when you have to be the most aware. It's when you have to be the most sharp, because anything can happen. So with that being said, you are trained to be alert, cautious, and very aware of your surroundings, especially in a domestic violence where you're dealing with DV cases. So, you know, it's not so much that you have, it's not so much that what rights that you have, because the goal is always protect the rights of the citizen. But as a police officer, you do need to be extremely sharp and extremely aware.
Nos cuenta que usualmente los casos de violencia doméstica son los más peligrosos para los policías, porque usualmente son pues muy emocionales y el porcentaje de peligro es más grande, la probabilidad de peligro es más grande. Entonces los policías son entrenados para que en esas situaciones, en estas llamadas, sean un poquito más cuidadosos en términos de cuando van a responder.
Okay. And when you are inside of the place or inside of the house, are you guys as a police officer are allowed to get into the house, or you have to ask permission?
Well, no. At that, remember, the reason when you're called for a domestic violence case, there's obviously there's something going on inside the home. Normally, you would knock to enter into someone's home, but based on the gravity of the call, you do have the authority and the ability to enter into the home.
Mi mamá preguntó, mi mamá preguntó que si pueden entrar a las propiedades cuando llaman a los policías por estas situaciones. Él dice que pues él nomás puede, saben a qué van a responder y nomás pueden tocar la puerta, y de en sí, si los dejan entrar, pues entran, si no, pues no. Sorry,
what you were saying, Norville?
About what? Yeah.
You were about to say something?
Oh, no. It's just about that same incident. It's just that you have to be, due to just how the severity of the call, like you're not going there, you're going there for a specific reason to make sure that the husband or the wife or whoever the victim is safe. So because people's lives are at risk, you do have the ability to go inside and make sure they're okay.
Okay. Entonces él dice que que como la llamada es para asegurarse que la víctima esté a salvo, por esa razón pueden entrar a la propiedad de donde llamaron.
And what about when you are inside, are you allowed to take video to record what is happening inside?
Well, most police officers today, this day and age, all have the body cameras turned on anyway. So, yeah, so for the most part, you're recording everything that you do. So when you go into these DV cases, that body camera is going to be operating. So, yeah.
Usualmente dice que, mi mamá le preguntó que si pueden grabar, pero dice que usualmente los policías en estos días ya llevan body cameras, son cámaras que traen puestas, entonces por eso graban las situaciones así.
I have a question here, Irma Lopez. She wants to know, what if one of them won't let you in?
What if one of them won't let you? That's an interesting question, right? Well, they're the ones who called us, right? So, it depends. Those kind of rules and laws change state by state. And, I don't know necessarily where they're calling from or what country they're calling from. But I know in New York, it's like, well, the bottom line is that if we can't come in, that's fine. But we're still going to want to speak to the husband, the wife, the victim, and the victim, and then also the person that's causing the injury or the bodily harm, right? So we at least want to see them, speak to them, and then find out. But one way or another, we're going to definitely separate them. One person will be leaving the house. We're not going to allow them both to be on scene together, or remain on scene together.
And you're allowed to speak. You have to. It's more like it's a rule that you have to speak separately.
Well, absolutely. Yes, that's part of your training that you receive in the police academy, is always separate the victim from separate the parties involved.
Oh, okay.
Entonces, Irma preguntó qué pasa si algunos de los que llamaron no dejan entrar a la casa, y él contesta que pues al final de cuentas lo que tienen que hacer es asegurarse que la víctima esté bien. Entonces van a hacer el intento posible para hablar con la víctima y asegurarse que esté bien, y en todos los momentos que esto pasa, separan a las dos personas involucradas para que no estén en la misma escena, y eso es parte del entrenamiento.
What if it's children involved? What do you do with the children?
¿Qué pasa si hay niños involucrados?
Yeah, if the children are being abused, is what you're saying?
No, I mean, like if they are in the scene in the house and they are kind of excited, or they are anxious about seeing the police and their parents fighting.
Oh yeah, so you have to. That's where you have to. There's I forget what they're called. I forget the social workers. So you have to engage the social workers to respond. Well, because you're not gonna, again, it's the same thing where either if the mom leaves, if you're gonna remove the father from the residence, then the children are gonna stay with the mom. If the mom leaves, then the children are gonna stay with the parents. It's gonna stay with the father. But if the children are unsafe, if you as a police officer determine that the children's security is in danger there, is remaining in the home, you would involve the the social workers to respond back, to respond to that scene and assist you with that.
Entonces, en instantes donde hay niños involucrados, o sea, en parte de todo de que está pasando, usualmente ellos tratan de ponerlos a los niños con los abuelos o con la tía o en alguna situación separada para que no haya problemas, especialmente si el agresor se queda en la propiedad.
Ooh. And what kind of resources will you give to the spouse that requests the help or the 911?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So the resource that's given to them is they're given immediate. There's a domestic violence coordinator that meets up with them immediately thereafter. They check in with them. They also provide them services such as counseling to try to make sure that they're okay, the victim, and stuff like that. So yes, there are resources that are provided to them through whatever state or county that the incident is happening in.
Entonces los recursos que le dan a las víctimas son usualmente pues tipos de terapia, counseling, para que puedan hablar de la situación y asegurarse que estén bien, y pues también les dan otros tipos de contactos.
And okay, perfect. And what about when you are stepping to the scene, you have to record and remember every single little detail?
Well, so what happens is whenever you respond to these scenes, you don't really have to remember everything because you have to fill out domestic violence forms, right? So while you're there, you're always going to fill out all the domestic violence forms, and you have to make sure that both the victim and as well as the person that was doing the action both get a copy of this form, so they are aware of everything that's happening, and you also are able to keep that for your records as well. But every domestic violence case that you go to, you have to fill out the it's called like a DV form, if I remember correctly, like a DV form is what it's called.
Entonces cuando ellos cuando ellos entran a una escena de estas, no tienen que recordar nada específicamente, pero sí tienen que llenar muchos formularios de la situación que está pasando, tienen que llenar mucha información, y esa información, las copias se van a los involucrados y él puede quedarse, el policía, con una copia para sus records.
Perfecto. ¿Alguien tiene una pregunta? Por favor, hablen ahora o callen para siempre porque ya casi terminamos. Y one more question. Están haciendo, what if you are witness? Está preguntando Irma. What if you are witness?
A witness to what? Actual physical violence?
Yes.
Oh, well, then you're a police officer and you're going to have to do what you need to do to make sure that that person can't hurt anyone or yourself.
Entonces, si el policía ve que algo pasa, él está responsable de asegurarse que no escale y pues hace los movimientos necesarios para solucionar la situación.
Those are the incidents and the times where you really, really have to revert back to your training because you have to make quick decisions at those times. And that's a lot of times where, things could go wrong. But if you're trained and if you're confident in your ability, you can kind of work your way through it. But you really have to be very cognizant that those are very delicate situations. But one way or another, you have to protect the person, the victim, and you also have to protect yourself. And you have to protect the community from this person as well that's causing the crime.
Entonces cuando los policías están en la escena y ven algún tipo de violencia, tienen que recurrir a su entrenamiento, recordar todo lo que aprendieron, y tener mucho cuidado manejando la situación. porque puede ser muy peligroso.
No manejando como él va manejando, no ese tipo de situaciones. Dalia pregunta, what happened when you get into the scene and they don't open the door? What do you do?
Okay, so let's think about it. So if I get there to the scene, and if I still have my hearing, I have my eyes, I have my senses, right? If I hear that there's violence happening on the other side of the door, I'm going to force my way in. If I can see through the windows that there's violence happening on the other side of the door, I'm going to force my way in. If I hear someone in physical pain, I'm going to force my way in. If I get to the house and someone doesn't open the door, I'm still going to do my due diligence. I'm going to check. I'm going to see all these different things, check and make sure that they're okay. But for the most part, I'm not going to leave until I speak to someone. I just wouldn't leave until I speak to someone.
Entonces, en las situaciones cuando no les quieren abrir la puerta, ellos van a hacer todo lo posible para hablar con la víctima, pero ellos no se van a ir sin hablar con la víctima primero. Entonces, lo que tengan que hacer para hacer eso.
One more question from Lucy. What do you like the most about Patty?
What do I like the most about Patty?
It's a question.
Patty's a terrific person, a wonderful person with a great heart.
A Patty no le huelen los pies. No es cierto. Dice que Patty es muy buena onda.
No, no es cierto. Dilo bien, dilo bien.
Que es una persona muy buena, muy chida.
Con un buen corazón, dijo.
Muy buen corazón.
Bueno, thank you, Nervio. And one more question. What if when you are seeing, for example, a woman from a scale from 1 to 10, how much it is important to remember her makeup, her hairstyle, her no, it's true, like her concealer, if she's wearing a blush, or do you guys look into those details?
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. So how important is a woman's appearance is what you're asking me?
Yes, how it is important from 1 to 10 of the police to look into these details.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good question, actually. Well, because a lot of times, the main thing about being a good police officer is that you have to pay attention to the small details like that, right? Where a woman may have her makeup may be running or blushed or out of place, and you would ask her, how did that happen? But the key to that is not asking her right in front of the person that's causing the crime, or her husband or her spouse, whatever it is. The goal is to separate them from where they're more willing to tell you the truth versus asking them that question right in front of the person that's doing that's victimizing them, because they'll be more apt to not tell you the truth. But when you separate them, they're more apt to tell you the truth.
Entonces mi mamá le preguntó qué tan importante es tener los detalles acerca del maquillaje y del peinado de las víctimas, y él dice que pues parte de ser policía tienes que tener mucho ojo al detalle y cosas así. Entonces si ves algo fuera de lo común, como el maquillaje se le está corriendo o algo así que fuera de lo normal, tienes que preguntarle, pero es importante preguntarle cuando están separados del agresor de la víctima, porque así es más probable que te digan la verdad, ya que si el agresor está en el mismo cuarto y le haces la pregunta, probablemente no te va a decir la verdad.
Do you recall to being a witness in a court for a case of domestic violence?
Of course, yes. Yes.
Le preguntó que si ha sido ha dado testimonio en corte acerca de casos de esto.
De violencia doméstica. And how that goes? How stressful it is?
Well,
how fun it is?
Well, it was the one time it was a case where a father was abusing his children, his small children. I think it was a 6-year-old boy and his 4-year-old son, and the children snuck out of the house. I want to say they snuck out of the house because they were being abused by the father, and they called us at 11 o'clock p.m. And I just so happened to be at the police station, and I answered the phone, and I kept the child on the phone for so long, giving me as much information as possible, that audio tape, the audio tape was the audio tape that was used to have the father convicted and put in jail for about 15 years, if I believe.
Él dice de un caso que dos niños estaban siendo abusados por su papá y los niños se escaparon de la casa por el abuso, llamaron a la policía tarde en la noche y él los mantuvo en el teléfono por mucho tiempo y en ese tiempo les hizo muchas preguntas y agarró mucha información y usaron en la corte, usaron ese recording, esa grabación de la llamada para poner al papá en la cárcel por 15 años.
Bueno, ¿alguien más tiene una pregunta para Norville que le quieran hacer? ¿Alguna pregunta? Chicas, está soltero, vive en Nueva York. Tell us about your job now. What are you doing? Because now you are retired, right? From your 20, now you are retired as a police officer.
Yep.
And now, how long it's been since you are retired?
So I've been retired now for 4 years. Now I'm head of security, director of security for one of the largest theaters in most historic theaters in New York. So yeah, life is going pretty well.
Que está retirado y trabaja como...
Pero Alex, explícales bien, ¿está retirado de qué? O sea,
de policía.
Alex, diles bien.
Es que no escuché bien.
Bueno, a ver, termina de decirles.
Que se retiró y ahorita trabaja como guardia de seguridad para un teatro histórico en Nueva York.
Ok, dice, a ver, ¿quién más tiene alguna pregunta? And you say life is going well, so you can like you have that in your genes, like to protect people. It's in your genes, in your ADN.
Yeah, it's just now it's a little bit easier when I don't have to worry about dealing with people. I have to deal with people, but it's just not as difficult as it was before, that's for sure.
Mi mamá le preguntó que si el proteger a la gente está en su ADN, por eso está en ese trabajo. Le dice, pues, le gusta proteger a la gente, pero este trabajo es menos pesado que el de antes, menos estresante.
Okay, so alguien dice que, can you give us your Instagram? Jocelyn wants your Instagram.
My NYEAR 75.
Ok, guys, please, las moderadoras escriban aquí su Instagram para que vayan y le digan, venimos del salón de Patty. They're gonna recall you that we're coming from Patty's channel, okay?
Okay.
Okay, one more question. Dice Lidia Perez, in what circumstances the police arrest both of the spouses involved in somatic violence?
It happens sometimes. It does happen where we arrest both parties. It does happen sometimes.
Le preguntaron que en qué circunstancias usualmente arrestan a las dos personas involucradas en la violencia doméstica. Y dice que pues ha pasado, lo han hecho. Pero no, circunstancias no digo.
A perfect example of a reason why you would arrest both parties is because a lot of times the male is let's just say the male is the one that's actually doing the physical violence, right? But then again, the woman had previously had a domestic violence case with this same male, where the judge issues an order for the two to stay away from each other. The woman violates it by going back to the man. So you're going to end up arresting the woman for being held in contempt of court, but then you're also going to arrest the male again for conducting the violence. So a lot of times it does happen quite a bit.
Un ejemplo en los que arrestan a las dos personas es cuando decimos la mujer es víctima de violencia y luego la corte pone una orden de restricción a los dos, entonces no pueden estar juntos, pero la mujer viola la orden de la corte y va a ver el hombre otra vez y el hombre causa violencia otra vez, entonces en ese momento cuando llega la policía, porque el hombre cometió violencia, lo arrestan y la mujer porque no obedeció a la corte también la arrestan. En esas circunstancias.
Dice, Veronica wants to know how often is the violence against woman towards man?
I don't know the exact crime statistics, so I can't really be able to speak for a fact in terms of the number. but it's you know, don't it's not it's it. How can I say it? It does exist. It does exist. You know, the numbers I would say are probably like lower, probably about 15%. I don't know. I don't like I said I don't know the crime statistics, but it does happen where the women are the ones that are actually the abusers of men. It does happen.
Le preguntaron o sea, qué porcentaje usualmente es mujeres haciendo el abuso. Dice que no tienen las estadísticas exactas, pero podría ser como un 15%, pero sí es común que pasa.
Okay, and one more question and the last one. What about, are you following the case of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard?
I am not actually. Maybe you guys can fill me in on what's going on.
Okay, Alex.
Dice que no está al tanto del juicio, pero que si ustedes lo
Pero el
ayudan
juicio de quién, Alex? Es que la gente...
Johnny Depp, pues ¿cuál juicio estamos hablando?
Okay, bueno, do you think, because Johnny Depp is fighting against Amber because he's alleging domestic violence?
Well, he's suing her for defamation because she wrote an article, an op-ed, where she insinuated that he was abusive towards her. Okay. So he's suing her for defamation. So now she's trying to prove that he was abusive, but all the evidence is showing the contrary, that she was the one being the abusive one. Like,
and the cheater.
And then she cheated, and then she kind of faked some injuries and stuff. And so that's what the makeup question, because the lawyer for Amber is asking basically every witness, do you remember her makeup? Do you remember what she was wearing as a makeup? Like things like that. So that's why the question arose about the makeup.
Questions are coming from. You know what? It's funny. You guys are bringing up that case, you know, but to me, I think a little bit more of a case that, you know, people should think when they're thinking about domestic violence a little bit more closely is the case that happened over the summertime. I think the guy's name was Brian Laundrie or something like that. Like, that's a more... do you guys know about the case that happened over the summertime where the two of them were traveling across the country and it ended up in Utah where they ended they were where the guy ended up murdering the girl? It's a little, to me, I think, you know, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I think they're going to be okay in life. They have enough money to take care of each other, living apart. But those are the kind of what happened over the summertime, last summer, or whenever it was. Those are a little bit more of the cases, not necessarily always resulting in homicide or murder, but those are kind of the cases where it's a little bit more understandable. That I can relate a little bit more to, especially coming from my background.
Él nos dice que le conté ya todo el chisme de que pasó con el juicio, y nos dice que Johnny Depp y Amber Heard, a lo mejor ese caso no es muy relevante porque al final de cuentas son millonarios, entonces van a estar bien. Y no nada de referencia que si quieren estudiar más bien el caso de que pasó en el verano cerca de esta pareja que eran como influencers que viajaban en una camioneta y al final de cuentas el chavo, el novio, acabó pues matándola y hubo un despapalle que la estaban buscando en Utah. Y al final de cuentas pues apareció fallecida la chava y el chavo pues se notaba que era culpable y creo, si no me acuerdo correcto, creo que terminó su vida también.
Sí. Well, thank you so much. Gracias, Alex. Ya nos puedes, bueno, no sé si quieres quedarte, pero para que nos diga las últimas palabras. Thank you so much, Norbert, for your time. I know you were coming from work, and I really appreciate the time and the effort that in the last minute you say yes to me. I really appreciate that.
No problem. You're welcome.
Anything that you want to say, any last message for the people who might gonna be watching this video later, tomorrow, and months later, about as a police officer, as a man, as a U.S. resident, about these people who like to be violent?
Well, no, I don't. First of all, I recommend that people try to be as good and loving and warm towards each other as humanly possible. That's my advice. You know, that's what I'd say.
How old are you? Because Lucy says, you're very young to be retired.
Yeah, I'm 47, so I'm not that young anymore.
Alex.
Dice que tiene 47.
Ajá.
Y que el único consejo que les da es que todos se traten bien y que se tengan cariño y ya.
Alex ya está cansado, ya vete a dormir porque ya es muy tarde. Buenas noches, Alex. Gracias. Descansa. Gracias. Muchas gracias. Well, thank you. I'll let you go. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Have something warm for dinner. At what time do you start working tomorrow morning?
What's that?
At what time do you start working in the morning?
Oh no, thankfully I'm off tomorrow. Thankfully,
I'm okay.
A little while.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, thank you and keep in touch, okay?
Will do. I will do. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bueno, pues ya Alex le contó todo el chisme, ya saben aquí. Muchísimas gracias. Espero que se hayan divertido. Espero que hayan tenido más información acerca de qué hacer o qué no hacer o a qué estamos, a qué tenemos derecho y todo esto. Muchísimas gracias a todos los que se esperaron. Nos colgamos un poquito del tiempo porque pues llegó un poquito tarde por su trabajo. Lo bueno es que mañana no trabaja. Entonces ahora pues ya ni modo, porque ya tiene mi número de teléfono otra vez, entonces lo más seguro es que me ponga en contacto con él para cualquier otra cosa que se les ofrezca. Si alguien necesita algún tipo de asesoramiento, él está en Nueva York, ya les pasó sus redes sociales, recuerden para que también ustedes, si tienen tiempo y quieren averiguar más o si quieren que les dé algún consejo para alguna persona que ustedes conozcan que quisiera ser policía, pues ahí está muy joven para estar retirado, sí, porque él empezó joven y porque él aparte ya estaba también un poco fastidiado de ese tipo de vida, porque es una vida muy difícil la de los policías. Ellos ven muchas cosas, están arriesgándose también a muchas cosas, entonces pues también ellos quieren vivir una vida más tranquila. Ay, la otra, Lucy, por favor, a la dirección. Qué bueno que les gustó, muchísimas gracias, espero que se hayan divertido. De tarea tienen ir a ver toda la entrevista completa del colombiano, vayan a checarla. Si quieren también pueden ver lo del muffin, pero eso está en el video de ayer, esas son también como 5 horas. Y si se quieren divertir mañana en la traducción conmigo, pues vénganse de la mañana conmigo, empezamos temprano, como a las 8 o 9 de la mañana, creo que a las 8 de la mañana, súper temprano, una cosa así. Para que vengan y platiquemos aquí todo el merequetengue, pues sí, es un poquito largo, se vienen con lonche, se vienen hidratados, con el cargador cargado o donde estén viendo, pues aquí vamos a estar. Muchísimas gracias a todos y todas, los dejo ya descansar y bueno, pues se pueden ir en paz, que aquí, como saben ustedes, el chisme ha terminado. Alguien que quiera apuntar ahí en el chat el Instagram de Norville para que lo veanlo también en Facebook, para que ahí lo vayan a criticar, a stalkear, a lo que ustedes quieran agregar. Le dicen que vienen de parte de Patty, para que también él sepa, ¿verdad? Para que no piense que son ahí nada más de que salieron de la tierra. No, ustedes vienen de aquí. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Gracias, buenas noches, descansen, a dormir. Muchísimas gracias. Y bueno, pues ahora sí que se pueden ir en paz, que el chisme ha terminado. A otra cosa, mariposa. Bye, bye.